Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to accounting professionals who own and operate their own accounting business, offering accounting, bookkeeping, tax services. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center, and it's here that we cover topics that range from marketing, sales, technology, onboarding clients, the various things that you need to consider and understand for you to be able to offer not only quality accounting services, but get paid what you're worth and have a profitable business. Each time I have an excellent guest, someone that you can listen to and get excellent ideas and suggestions from, and today will be no exception. My guest happens to be Hossein Dadkhah. He is the president and founder of Advantage IT. I always want to say Advantage IT. I told him that, but Advantage IT. And it's essentially a technology service company for accounting professionals. He helps accounting companies actually work remotely, offer secure data things. I'm going to have him explain it, but the point is he's here to give us some excellent insights as to what it is we need to be considering as we operate our businesses using technology effectively so that we can do our work with confidence. So with that, first of all, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is going to be a fun little exciting conversation. We've already had some great discussions already. So first of all, just kind of introduce to everyone who it is and what it is you do. Do a better job than I did.
All right. So my name is Hossein. I've been in IT and cybersecurity field for the past 22 years. And my company is called Advantage IT. And we help accounting firms to operate from anywhere on any machine securely without breaking the bank.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things that I know a lot of accounting professionals want to know about is how can I do this work remotely? How can I keep my content or my client's work secure? So you're addressing all those topics. But one of the questions I wanted to start with is, what's one of the biggest misunderstandings people have about what it is you do for them?
So oftentimes, what we do, start at the IT level, right? And then we bring up the cybersecurity conversations, right? Because we have a saying, protect your clients, protect your firm, right? The way we look at it is, think about this, what is the biggest asset that any accounting firm has, right? And that typically, is the trust of the client, is a reputation. That is the biggest asset that every accounting firm has, right? Because once something happens that damages that reputation, you're going to start to lose clients, right? So we do way more than just getting a bunch of computer systems set up for them, right? Mm-hmm. We basically help them to secure the client data. And as a result of that, they could secure, their firm reputation and help them gain more clients and become even a competitive advantage for them.
Yeah, the one thing I can definitely say is, as a business owner, you don't want to go to your clients and say, I've been hacked. That's Absolutely. The big thing you want to avoid. There's a lot of secure, confidential information that they just want to think is secure, and they're holding you responsible or expecting you to keep that way. What's one of the things that you have as a piece of advice for an accounting professional? They're working with different software platforms, different add-ons, plugins. What advice do you have as you're helping them set up their system and manage that?
So security is a multi-layer approach, right? It's not like one thing you do and then you're good to go, right? It's a multi-layer approach. No firm, no company, in this nowadays, right, cannot claim that they're 100% secure, right? If somebody does, that's just a fake claim. Don't believe it, right? But here's the thing: what you need to do is you need to put layers in place, right, to make sure that you get as much security as possible, right? The way we look at it is three major components, right? We call it protection, detection, and response. Yeah. The easy way to describe this is your house, right? So think about that you just purchased a house or you're living in a house and you want to secure your house, right? When you want to secure your house, what do you do, right? There's a bunch of things that comes to mind, right? I put, gates, or fences around my house, I put locks on the door, I put like a motion detection system, maybe I have a dog, maybe I have an insurance policy, maybe I have a gun. There's so many different things that you might utilize in a house to secure your house, right? But everything, and there's more stuff to it, but everything that we kind of just went over, right, is basically you're trying to protect your house, which means you're going to make it difficult for someone to break in. That's mm-hmm. the fence around the house, for example, right? That's a lock on the door, right? Or you're going to detect to basically figure out if someone broke into your house, right? That's like the cameras you might put in, motion detections, your dog might start barking, right? Or this is after you want to respond. Okay, it happened. Somebody broke in. They already took stuff out, right? How do I respond to that, right? That might be like calling the cops, right? That might be your insurance policy that might kick in, right? So think about your accounting firm the exact same way, right? Think about any company basically the exact same way, right? A layered approach is basically you put a bunch of stuff in place, right, to protect it. You're going to make it difficult for someone to basically steal your data and get you compromised, right? Then you're going to do a bunch of stuff to detect, right, that you've been compromised and basically, figure it out right away, right? Or it's too late, happened, what's the aftermath? That's a response time. The biggest problem, that a lot of technology field professionals have is they invest too much on protection, right? We believe all those three are very important. You have to invest in all protection, detection, response. But if you're going to spend a little bit more money on one of those, it has to be detection. Because here's the thing. You were like cooking in a kitchen, you were just cutting some vegetables, right? You cut your hand. What is the first thing you want to do? Stop the bleeding, right? So the sooner you realize that you cut your hand, the sooner you're going to stop the bleeding, the less damage is going to be, right? Versus you let it bleed, right? So we believe that the focus should be like all three are very important. You have to invest on all three. But if you're going to spend a little bit more time and investment and money and everything, it has to be on a detection.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, if you look at the stories that go on out there, once someone's actually broken in and gotten through those cyber walls, once they're in, and generally they're in for periods of time doing things very slowly at first, and then they start extracting the data, and it's usually over not days, but weeks, months, maybe even years that they've actually had that gate open and they've been accessing that data, just taking away. And so the detection is that next layer that I think you're very clearly describing.
Absolutely. And according to Inc. magazine, it takes about 6 months for an average business owner to figure out that they have been compromised.
Yes.
Because here's the back in days, it used to be all about reputation and making a name. Oh, we hacked into so-and-so's company, right? Now, why should you make it a big deal? Why should you talk about it? You can be inside their company. You can still take your time. It's still all the data that you want, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody needs to find out. So that's why you're absolutely right. Detection is super important, right? The sooner you detect, the less damages your practice, the less damages your company, and so on.
Correct. I love that. Okay, so there's a difference between a large firm, someone that has partners, employees, staff, and someone that may be smaller, even down to a one-person shop. What are the differences from a cyber perspective, the vulnerabilities, and also some of the things that they need to be paying attention to in a large firm versus a smaller, maybe one-man shop?
So this might sound a little bit controversial, but I think the principle remains the exact same, whether you're a small firm or a big firm, right? Again, just like your house, doesn't matter how big your house is, you're going to use the same principle,
yes,
right, to secure your house. Obviously, your budget might be different, right? The kind of equipment and technology and tools that you have access to might be different, but the principle remains the same, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very common misunderstanding that we have in the industry. Oh, I'm a tiny firm. I'm a small company. Nobody cares about me. I don't have much. Well, guess what? The perception is if you're a small firm, you probably have less security in place. You are easier target, right? Remember, not every attacker, every hacker, everyone who wants to compromise your company, right, is some big shot guy. A lot of those we call them script kiddies, right? Just like somebody who learned a few little things and they take the easy targets. They don't take the big targets all the time, right? So knowing that they don't have all the resources that a big company has, the smaller company is actually a bigger target to be compromised, right? So I would say you can still apply the same principles, right? Obviously, yes, your budget is limited, right? But by putting layers in place, you're going to make it more difficult no matter what size you are. So I think it remains the same no matter the size that your firm or practice is.
Very good. And with the vulnerabilities, imagine, for example, I'm a firm and I use all third-party type things. So nothing's proprietary. I'm using a QuickBooks, a Sage, a FreshBooks, a Xero. I'm using HubDoc and various third-party applications. Why am I worried about security? Isn't that what they're supposed to be worried about?
Very good question. I'm so glad you brought it up. So I'm going to get into a legal aspect of it for a second. Okay. So you're an accounting firm, or you're an accounting firm owner, right? You have been trusted by your clients. They provide a bunch of sensitive data to you, their financial statements, taxes, financial banking information, all that. Okay. So in the eye of law, these information, we call them assets. These are the assets that have been handed to you, right?
That's right. Okay.
In the eyes of law, you are going to be the asset owner. Now you own these assets, okay? And now you have decided to hire a third party like Intuit, like Xero, like Freshwave, all these guys, right, to do some processing for you, right? Or even hired an IT company to basically help you with this stuff. It's all the same, right? They are called asset custodians. You're the asset owner. They are the asset custodians. You've chosen to hand over the data to these guys or to these companies to basically do some processing, right? Okay. So if there is a data compromise, if there is a lawsuit, right, the asset owner is the one who get called to the court. You cannot call the asset custodian. That's number one. Right, so you're the one. It's like I trusted you.
So if I'm compromised, my client has an issue. It's not with Intuit that they have the issue. It's with me.
If you solely chose to give the data to Intuit, right, and it wasn't client decision, right? You chose to do that, right? And Intuit got compromised. It gets back on you.
Nothing against Intuit. We got
No,
Sage.
yes,
Xero,
of course. No, I mean
yes.
any third party,
Yes, that's right.
vendor, right? And I just want to open a little parenthesis here, right? So any third party vendor that any accounting firm hires, they have to do some sort of high level risk assessment on them, right? It's basically to understand what kind of security controls they have in place, right? How much the data is protected. Obviously, that's a key decision factor to either go with them or not, right? But also what happens if they get compromised. And I want to shed a little bit light on what happens if they get compromised,
okay.
right? So let's say it happens. So any third-party service that you sign, especially the online and cloud services these days, there's a terms and agreements, right? There's a button to push agree or you sign a paper or something,
The thing that I read, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which a lot of us don't even read. Just scroll down. It's like 10 pages. Who wants to read that, right? Anyway, so in those, right, there is a limitation of liability. There's always a clause for that, and you can read it, right? And this is a very common practice. Again, I'm not going to say who or what software, right? Generally speaking, the common practice in the industry is they would pay you back about 12 months of service, okay? So let's say they get compromised, right? They might pay you back, about 12 months of what you paid them. Here's the thing. The average cost for a data breach is easily in hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And again, that's liability, that is recovery fees, that damage to reputation, you name it. I can go down the list of, it easily can get to $1 million, depends on how big or small your firm is, right? So think about like hundreds of thousands of dollars versus you pay them, I don't know, maybe $100 a month, $200 a month, $300 a month, right? That's just a couple $1,000s, right? So you're always at a deficit here, right? And again, I highly recommend any third-party services you chose, no matter how big or small the name is, right? Always read their terms and agreements, right? But always look at the security controls in place and make an educated decision to put additional controls in place. For example, I know that if this third-party cloud service or accounting service or whatever I'm using, if they get compromised, they're going to pay me like $10,000, let's say. Okay. All right. I know my liability is like $1 million. So what should I do? Right? Not just hoping they don't get compromised. Right? Maybe I could purchase some cyber liability insurance, some cyber security insurance on my side to have it as a basically a factor that if that happened, then I can go use this to kind of recover from it.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, these days it could happen to anybody. Nobody can say they're 100% protected. Right? So back to your question, right? Yes, if that was the decision that was solely made by the firm owner or the firm partners, right? If the third party gets compromised, it's solely the liability of the accounting firm owners.
Okay, good. Now the other thing is there's different types of being compromised. One is you're unable to access your computer, you're being held ransom, you're asked to actually provide through some cyber currency some payment to unlock and get a key.
Right.
There's instances where you're compromised and they're extracting data. Many accounting firms probably don't have a lot of confidential information in the sense of there's not intellectual property, there's not necessarily all this stuff. It's numbers. Maybe they have payment information, but what should the accountant be worried about is really what I'm asking. What type of likely compromise are we talking about?
There are many different ways, right? But I'm going to go over a couple different categories that can happen, right? The most common one is phishing emails.
Yes.
So common these days, right? They send an email, right? It looks legit, right? But it's not really legit. So when you open that email, there's a link inside of it that they want you to click on it, right? Or there's some instruction into it, right? Obviously, we have a saying that humans are the weakest link in any security planning.
Yes.
Right? Because at the end of it, it's us who click on that link or follow the instruction of that email, right? But guess what? With proper education, that weakest link can turn into your first line of defense.
Correct.
They're going to be catch it like, this is, fishy. Don't click here. This is odd. Roger would never send me that email, ask me to wire $10,000, right? So that's one thing the easiest way to get compromised probably.
Yeah, so it's those links from an email we've not solicited, so it's unannounced, we didn't expect it, and they're asking us to do something, click on a link.
Or looks legit, pretending to be from someone you know.
Yes.
There's so many differences in it, but phishing emails, I would say, are the most common one.
And then there's also the attachments that sometimes can come
Exactly.
with those emails.
Open this, don't open. If you don't know, you don't trust it, don't open it. Trust me, if it's legitimate, somebody eventually will call you, or you should pick up the phone and call them, hey, Roger, did you really send this?
I have a perfect example of this. Literally 2 weeks ago, working with a loan officer, speaking to a loan officer, they were speaking of, at the time of the sale, they told the purchaser, at that point, you're going to have to wire money to this lender. And there are likely scenarios where you're going to get an email asking you to send it somewhere that you ought not. This specifically is where you need to send it, and when you get it, I want you to call me and confirm that you're going to the right place. And this person did get, coincidentally, an email at that time asking, and it was an $80,000 transfer that they were arranging, and they were just one decision away from sending it to the wrong place. And if it was sent, they never would have had the money afterwards and no recourse to get it back.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, just 2 weeks ago I had this incident. So I totally understand what you're talking about. All right, so we've got the bad email being the first line of defense, realizing, hey, I need to question what it's asking me to do. The attachments, what else?
The one other very common one is not keeping your system up to date with the recent security patches. And on these days, every day they found something new, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't keep your system patched, right? If you don't apply the latest security updates to your accounting software, to your operating system, like Windows is a very common one, and all that, right? You're leaving holes open for the people that can get in. The other one, which is I highly want to encourage everyone to do this, is two-factor authentication. Enable two-factor or multi-factor authentication on everything. And that's like when you have your credentials, your username and password, but then you also have your phone, you get a secondary code or something to put in. Banks are very common
That's right.
for that, right? Enable that on anything possible. Because here's the thing, username and passwords can be easily stolen. You will be surprised how easy it is. And they're being sold on places like dark web, for pennies, per record, right? So if someone sells your credentials, they can technically get in. But by enabling two-factor authentication in your systems, you're making it difficult. There is going to be one more layer they have to go through, so you're going to reduce your risk quite a bit. So just using credentials, especially the easy-to-guess password, don't. Whatever it is, make complicated password, but definitely enable multi-factor authentication on every account that you have. And you mentioned something about like accountants or accounting firm don't have a ton of data, right? I'm going to give you one example. I'm going to get back to what we started at the beginning. You'll be surprised. There's a ton of liability in having access to someone else's financial information.
Oh, yes.
Right. I'm
Yes.
sure you know that. But let's talk about a particular breed of accountants, right? That's what the tax preparers and the EAs, right? This is an example, but again, it can easily be applied to the bookkeepers, can be easily applied to tax planner, like you can go all the way down. EAs are registered with IRS, right? IRS requires you legally to report if you had a data breach.
Correct.
And that's a very standard format paper. I hope you never have to send it in your life, right? But it basically says, oops, sorry, we messed up. We have been compromised. Your record is now accessible to everybody else. Now they have to purchase credit monitoring for you. The credit monitoring is not the most expensive part. Again, it's like picture yourself as a client receiving this letter and saying that, oh, I trusted John, but John couldn't take care of my data. It's like you give your car key to someone to go for a ride and come back, do some shopping, whatever, right? And they come back and they have damaged your car, they had an accident, right? You will never trust them again, right?
That's right.
And trust me, these days in this market that, obviously there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of good accounting firms out there, right? This is the last thing you want to do. But on the other end, you can also use your cybersecurity posture as a competitive advantage, as something to say, you know what, we're better than the next door accounting firm because we implemented these controls in place that we care more about your data, we care more about your financial information, we're going to protect them like our life depends on it.
That's right. One of the things that I think is so important about what you just shared is, although that financial information is so valuable and important, it's actually so personally valuable and important. It's like any burglary. When you're personally robbed, you're violated, and it doesn't matter if somebody just took something out of your car as you left it open and it was irrelevant, or if it was your purse, wallet, and so forth. It's the point that you've been violated, and so
exactly.
that's one of the things that I think is hugely important out of this whole discussion. It's not the fact that there's this blueprint for some proprietary product that you're worried somebody's going to steal and rob you of the opportunity of actually making millions and billions. It's the fact that you've been violated.
It's very personal. It's
very
like,
personal.
Picture if I somehow got access to your email, how does it make you feel? I'm sure there is nothing crazy in your email. Somebody's like,
Actually, there's not.
now he knows my whole life.
I do more junk mail than I do actual mail, so you're good there. But the point is it's that violation,
Exactly.
and so to have that security, to say you live in a gated community, I have security, I have this protection, that helps you actually sleep well at night.
Exactly.
And that's what we're trying to do from an accounting firm, is provide to our clients that peace of mind to realize that you've put into place those measures to secure the data and also ensure that it's always there.
It's a very trust-based business.
Yes.
It's all about trust.
Very well
You're
said.
selling trust, you know.
All right, so the things that you gave, excellent recommendations. Obviously, be careful with the emails you're receiving. That's your first line of defense. Definitely the updates. I couldn't agree more. There's some people that I know that are very reluctant to do the updates. One, it causes you to reboot your computer or your phone or whatever, and it's like, well, no, you need to do that.
Nowadays we're in the middle of tax season, obviously. You know how crazy busy, all these accounting firms are. Oh, I'm too busy. I can't reboot my computer. You should. You probably should.
Yeah, it's getting that notification that says, do you want to do it in 10 minutes, an hour, a day?
Right,
and you're
right,
like,
right.
I don't want to do it at all. And you keep going out, and it's like, no, we need to do this. And you're like, you're not going to do it. Well, you're not doing yourself any favors. And then the two-part authentication, that multi-layer, that's so helpful. I love that idea. Whether you get the email confirmation code or the text that comes, perfect for the protection. So all those things being said, can you share an example of something avoided, something missed, an example of where this paid off?
So, I think the example that you said was perfect. Like 2 seconds later, something slipped, the person could have wired that much money out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's funny, like unless something bad happens, people don't remember. It's so bad.
True.
Because the other way, right? There is so many, like all these layers that, you put in place, it's going to catch a bunch of stuff, right? But it's almost like a typical IT professional. You never get appreciated when things are working. When it's broken, everybody calls you and like they're mad at you, right? So it's almost the other way. Like I rather nothing happens and nobody like calls me to say thank you. That's perfect, right? Then something bad happens and say, hey, we've been compromised,
Well, I'll even be a little vulnerable here. This is a long time ago, something that I learned from. We ended up seeing that in the office we had bandwidth issues. Everybody started having issues downloading things.
Become slow.
Everything started to get slow, and we're like, what's going on? Are you downloading something? You uploading something? What's happening here? And in the office, we just couldn't put our finger on it. And so I coincidentally contacted the broadband company that we were using and asked what the bandwidth was. Are there spikes or anything? And they looked at it and they said, holy cow, you got all this stuff going on. Starts early in the morning going, I'm like, we're not doing anything. Nobody's doing this stuff. What's happening? And so what it appeared is somebody had actually gotten in and was using our IP to send out emails. And so it wasn't anything that we were compromised in the context of data, but it was that they were repurposing our service, our IP, so that they could send out emails. And quickly shut that down. But we looked back, and it was honestly a few months that
they were doing this.
Yeah, they were doing it. So they basically pirated our router and so forth. It was crazy, but got resolved. It was something addressed, and fortunately, I could say nothing was stolen or taken, or we didn't have any compromise. But we were definitely violated in that sense, and so I'm sensitive to it now.
Yeah.
So that's something to think.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to switch gears here. Let's go positive on this.
All right.
Let's go positive. There's a lot of advantages that come with technology. In fact, the accounting profession itself over the last number of years has really benefited from technology, not just the ability with software to do the work, not just the plugins, but just the fact that we can now work remotely anywhere. We can do our jobs, in essence, from anywhere.
Anywhere.
There's a lot of times where clients don't necessarily have to see us physically. We don't need to go to them for the data. They don't need to come to us to get the data. We can report back to them with the financial reports and give them reviews. We can send them maybe like a Loom video with an explanation of what we don't have to necessarily have the physical contact that only a few years ago was expected. So how does technology afford us that privilege, and how can we take advantage of it?
I mean, it's amazing the tools that we have available, the technology at our fingertips these days, right? I mean, we have clients that within 48 hours, within a weekend, they go virtual, right? So all that office setup, I mean, obviously we're people habits, right? We kind of get used to something, it's hard to change, right? I'm not going to get into that aspect of the mental aspect of the change. But think about this, like not just, you get the flexibility of work from anywhere you want, you also get access to a bigger pool of talents, right? Mm-hmm. Because nowadays, the post-COVID era, right? I mean, we're still in COVID era, but one of the problems we have is finding talents.
That's right.
Finding professional talents, right? I just, especially at taxes, and I encourage you to post an ad for hiring a professional tax preparer or an accountant or bookkeeper. See how hard it is to even get resumes, rather going to resumes, right?
That's
you don't
right.
even get as many anymore, right? So, okay, but that's like typically back in days, we just reduce ourselves within the central radius of our office, right? We're only going to hire within this radius. You have to come to the office, right? Now you're virtual. You can have access to an entire pool across the country, right? And a lot of people these days want to work remote because they have the flexibility of staying with their family, staying home, for any number of reasons. They prefer to work from home from anywhere they want, in fact, right? I mean, traveling is obviously a really good reason as a part of that, right? It's like you always want to go to the Hawaii, right? And you thought it was expensive to go for just a week or so. But guess what? It's probably cheaper to live in Hawaii for a couple months and have the time to wander around and see around and all that, right? If your firm is virtual, right, you absolutely can do that. You can just connect from anywhere and enjoy the same access to the tools that you would have in the office, probably even faster, right? Better communication with your team members, right? And it's like it's just like we're in the office. So definitely technology gone a long way to enable us to do that these days.
So two things. One, there's the client side. Now we have the ability to take clients from basically anywhere.
Absolutely.
So no longer are we confined to geographically, I can get a client that's within miles or whatever of my business. I can now take on clients that are across the country, in other countries and so forth. So that's powerful. That ability to acquire a client, retain the client, interact with the client remotely has totally changed in the last, I'd say, 2 years, especially because of the COVID experience. But then your point, there is such a problem today hiring and finding quality talent that when you now say that I don't require them to work at a physical location, immediately your ability to find the quality person that you need becomes so much easier. Right now I'm dealing with firms that are reluctant to hire staff that can't come into the office, and they're all being pushed to how do we go about hiring, training, building a culture around these people, setting expectations for people that honestly we may never meet. And so that's been a challenge that right now I'm dealing with a number of firms that they're in that process of evolving. We went through this experience, almost a decade ago. Wow. I remember the very first time we changed our phone system to a VoIP system, and we had an employee that had the opportunity to go work in Guam.
Wow.
So here she is in Guam. This is out in the middle of the Pacific. And in Guam, she wanted to work. She didn't want to take time off. Her partner at the time was being relocated by Delta to work at the Delta hub there on the island of Guam.
Wow.
And so she was saying, can I work there? Well, obviously, it's different hours of the day to work with and deal with people here in the United States. But she was willing to work these crazy hours. And we said, go ahead, work flawlessly. Then we had somebody that worked, they moved to the East Coast flawlessly. We had another person move to the East Coast flawlessly. My point is today, there's 2 of us in the office. Everyone else works remotely. Amazing. And so it's been incredible. And today, I've now begun working with virtual assistants. I've got an employee that works in Kenya, so that's Africa. I've got 3 people that work in the Philippines. So it's really broadened the potential of the business when you start to leverage technology and explore these options. Amazing. So very good. Now you just recently worked from Colombia.
I did. I actually spent a month in Colombia. and working and living just like how I was living and working here. And that was probably one of the best experiences in my life so far.
Yeah. Now, you've got expats that leave the country to live there, but you've got these people that remotely work for their jobs. And you said there's a community of these people, and you were able to meet up with some of them.
Yeah, so I guess the term these days is digital nomads, right?
Yep.
And that term is widely used on social media these days. But there is a lot of digital nomads, in any country that you go. There's a lot of communities on Facebook, on other social, on LinkedIn for the dedicated digital nomads where they can go and connect with each other. But there is a lot of, in Colombia, I made friends with a lot of people from Europe, from US, obviously, from Canada. And me didn't speak Spanish, right, as much as I should. I should probably learn a little bit more Spanish. I was like looking forward, oh, my fellow American, you speak English too, So it was great to meet these people who basically all were working remotely, as well.
It's powerful. I've got people that I personally know that have gone to Costa Rica for a month or more to work. People have gone to Puerto Rico, and in Puerto Rico they've worked for a few months, taking their families, working remotely. It's been an amazing opportunity for them. Now, I've also conversely known of a few people that have purchased motorhomes and just traveled around the United States and take their kids, homeschooled them, and work remotely. There are so many opportunities that afford us today with virtual technology that what can't we do?
Especially like you mentioned in the accounting realm, in the accounting world, it's probably the easiest access to technology to be remote, right? A lot of time we are just bounded with our mindset, right? Once we can get past beyond that mindset, right? Once we see the world as a way bigger, window of opportunity, right? And convince ourselves to make that switch. Like you said, you have access to a bigger pool of talents, you have access to a bigger pool of clients, and I think that would be actually a firm game, right? Because you can compete with everybody else.
That's right.
And basically get more clients.
Yep. And just to finish this whole thing, I mentioned earlier, I've got a vendor that I work with. He works out of, I think it's Nova Scotia, and he just recently went down to Cancun, extended his stay. He's working down there. I've had now multiple meetings where I talk to him, and the background behind him has changed. It's not his home in Nova Scotia. It's down in Cancun. So.
No, honestly, I felt my mood was a lot better, I'm a happy person, generally speaking, but I was even happier there. And I probably ate more than what I eat here back home, but I actually lost weight. So I loved it. I loved it. And I would definitely encourage people to try it at least once in their lifetime, right? If it's good, keep doing it. If it's not good, that's okay. You at least tried it, right?
That's exactly right.
And I'm going to keep doing it more of that this year.
I love that. Beautiful. Okay, so one thing I'd like to know is, in your space, technology, cybersecurity, all these things, what's something that interests you in your field that we should know about in the future? What's something that you're paying attention to that intrigues you?
So there are a couple of things that comes to my mind, right? One of them I kind of really wanted to bring it to this conversation is actually regarding accounting firms.
Okay.
Accounting firms and technology, right? We are noticing, so a lot of accounting firms and accounting professionals partnering with technology companies, not in the traditional sense of we're going to help you be more secure and be virtual and all that. That's a traditional sense, right? The new sense is partnering with each other, selling services. Because here's the thing, as an accounting firm, your biggest asset is trust. The client already trusts you, right? They trust you with financial information. So it's really easy to trust you with the data as well, right? So if you had the talent, if you had the partnership, if you had something with a technology firm, right, you could easily cross-sell technology services. And obviously, there's profits involved, right? There is who doesn't want more money, right?
That's right.
So and we're seeing it become more and more common these days, right? So they don't look at the technology or just a traditional sense of help us, be secure and be virtual and all the good stuff, right? But also like, hey, we got this client opportunity, would you like to go in and sell us together on it, right? Especially for the CPAs, this is actually a CPA firm, it's a lot more common. AI CPA is highly encouraging all the CPAs to actually sell cybersecurity services to their clients. Because if you think about it, it goes great line as their financial data, other data, it's data, right? If you can protect these, you can protect the other ones as well, right? So this is one thing I was going to bring in, right? If you're looking for a competitive advantage, right, to gain more clients, right? I think obviously one option is distinguish yourself by your cybersecurity posture, show that you're better than next door firm, regarding, the care that you put into protecting the client data, right? The next thing is, think about the more profit that you can make and the more trust of the client to almost become like a one-stop shop for generally speaking, their technology and security needs, right? Yes, you might not have the expertise in-house, but there's tons of firms who would love to partner with you, right? And they have just as great reputation as you and might be a good fit. So it's always a good idea to look into to sell additional services, to the client because, it's a win-win situation for both client and the firm, right? But the other thing, that I'm noticing these days is when a firm decides to go virtual, right, it actually has opened up, like I said, a lot of more opportunities for them, right? And talent probably was the biggest one, right? Because we have a shortage of talent these days, right? You can find remote talents much easier than just looking for a certain radius of your office, right?
Yes.
So that's basically, what I've been noticing or what I'm suggesting.
I love it. And what you were commenting about the CPA firms, accounting firms teaming up to offer IT type services to their clients, I can understand how that might work because you've got business owners that may not be as sensitive to the data protection and may not have those things taken care of on their end. And here you are as the accounting firm dealing with sensitive data, protecting it for them and realizing that your client's still vulnerable. Maybe they need to have this type of protection for their own company. And you're going to introduce them to the ability to go remote and be secure. And they might not see that potential until you introduce that.
Absolutely correct. I want to just add one more thing. It just
Yeah.
came to my mind when you said that. So here's the thing. As an accounting firm, as an accounting professional, your best interest is your client to stay in business longer.
Exactly.
You want your client to not get compromised. You want your client to not go out of business. The very first thing these days that can make you go out of business is a data breach, right? In fact, 60% of businesses go out of business within 6 months of a cyber attack.
Wow.
And that's because of the cost, obviously, right? They can't recoup the cost. It's horrible, basically, right? So think about it also from this aspect. Not only you're going to help taking care of a problem that they have and they're going to be thankful, right? You're going to help them stay in business longer, which means they're going to be your clients for longer, right? Again, it's a win-win situation
Their
for everybody.
success is your success.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah, the growth and sustainability of them is yours.
Right.
I mean, you benefit from it. So
And I'm not going to
very well
name
said.
any firms, but here where we are, right?
Uh-huh.
I know 2 firms that publicly are advertising these on their websites, under social media, on their flyers, or whatever other advertising avenues that they're using, right? Even so, when it's happening here, it's happening tenfold other states.
Yes, yes.
So it's actually something I highly recommend you guys if you think that you want to expand further and you want to just take it up a notch and like do something and to be distinguished in the market. Absolutely look into partnering, with a technology or cybersecurity firm in your market.
I like that. I like it a lot. Let's move this on to more of a personal discussion. Let's take it to another level. I think your life, your story is quite fascinating. So I think there's a lot to share there. So what's one of the first things that people most often misunderstand about you?
Personally, when you're speaking,
Personally.
I don't know because I'm only thinking about my friends and family and people I deal with every day, and they know everything about me, so there's not much to be misunderstood.
I can give you one. I think you told this to me when we were having lunch.
Okay.
You mentioned that because you're Persian, most people assume that you're Hispanic.
That's
And they think you speak Spanish, but you don't speak Spanish because you're Persian.
That's actually a really funny one because so my name is Hossein, right?
Uh-huh.
8 out of 10 over the phone. I'm introducing myself, and I say, hey, my name is Hossein. Can you help me with so and so, right? Or
Yep.
can you get me in touch with John? They're like, Jose, wait a minute, I'm gonna connect your call, right? So like it often it's funny, and then that gets even better. Like when we travel to Mexico or Colombia and all that, I guess we blend in with the people.
You do.
They automatically assume that we're Hispanic or we can speak Spanish, and they start speaking Spanish to us. And I remember there was this one instance, like my wife and I, we went to a restaurant, right?
Uh-huh.
And the server just assumed that we're Hispanic. This happened here, right?
Yes.
So she started speaking Spanish to us, right? And then like we responded in English, right? And then she started resuming in Spanish, and we told her, I'm really sorry. I wish I could, but I don't really speak Spanish. So she thought we were being snobs or something, like we just purposefully don't want to speak Spanish. She got upset at us and she left.
Oh my heavens.
I was like, no, really, Or the best part is, when we fly back into the country, when we visit like Mexico or something, right? They just assume most people on the plane speak Spanish, right? So when you get there, they want to separate you. They're like, oh yeah, this is the Spanish-speaking line, It's like, no, I don't speak Spanish. Put me, somewhere that I can understand English.
I love it because I actually speak Spanish. So I would be standing there and they would assume you could, and they wouldn't think I could. So
Yeah,
kind of
it's
interesting.
funny, yeah.
All right, so give me a childhood favorite memory.
A childhood favorite memory is probably the time that I spent with my family, with my brothers and mom and dad, right? And it's funny, like everything was just so simpler back then. Like our games, when we played, when we went to the places, right? And I remember like I was born in Tehran, right? But my parents are from a city called Rasht, which is like north of Iran. It's right by the Caspian Sea. Weather-wise, it's somewhere like Seattle, right? Like it rains, it's green, like summers are a little bit hot and humid, right? And it rains a lot in winter, doesn't snow a whole lot, right?
Yes.
So my dad was from there, right? So almost like every month we had to make a trip there, like in a car. And we're talking back in old days. I sit in a car, like drive for like, I don't know, 5-6 hours there.
Wow.
And we were in the car with I have two brothers. Like we were just playing and doing stuff, in the car. And then eventually, as I grow up, right, I thought those are the most boring trips. So like, why do we go there every month, right? I mean, what is there? It's the same old, right? And now that I'm older, right, I really miss it. I wish I was spending, like I wish we could do more of those trips. I wish I wasn't complaining a whole lot about the same old boring trip, back to my dad's hometown, and just like, I don't know, enjoy the time more in the car with my brothers, like do something, rather than just like basically thinking it's a waste of time, right? So I miss the time that I spent with my family, we're kind of all apart these days,
Correct.
My parents live in Canada now, one of my brothers lives actually in Seattle, the other one travels abroad, right? So I kind of wish that, we could have spent more time, but we only get to see each other like maybe 2-3 times a year, which is not enough. Yeah.
No, not enough. Not enough at all. What's it like having a single child versus being raised in a family like you had siblings?
You touched a very sensitive subject for me. Because I have one child now, and I'm like having those thoughts in my head, right? What would be different for her if she was the only one, like growing up, right? Versus me, like raised with a family, with brothers or siblings,
Yes.
which I don't have no sisters, but siblings the same, right? I think you're more complete when you're raised with siblings. I think you get to experience the stuff that you don't get to experience as a single child. I don't know, all the games, and like I give you an example, right? Like I have two brothers, they're both younger than me, right? We love soccer, right? We love playing soccer. But here's the thing, when you're a kid, you're an idiot sometimes. So we used to play soccer with a real soccer ball indoor. So the soccer ball is pretty heavy. And my mom, she's retired now, but she was a high school teacher.
Okay.
So poor mom coming home every day and facing a broken glass, broken window, something, because the idiots play with a real soccer ball
In the house.
in the house, right? And they shoot the ball, like break something every time she comes, and it was like normal for her, but like that was for
That's
something.
3 boys.
That's 3 boys, right? That's something I remember from playing with my brother. Like right now, we still laugh about it. We're like, oh, remember how idiot we were? Like we broke things, right? And like. I feel that I was blessed to have this interaction with them. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the child that's being raised as a single kid, right, as the only kid, definitely probably gets more attention from the parents. That's obviously not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
You need to get that interaction with the siblings in my opinion, right? It's not the same as interacting with your friends, right? The siblings are a whole different world because you live with them every day. Like
That's
they're
right.
there, all the time.
Well, first of all, I could say in the house with I'd call it a football and soccer ball. that let's say you broke whatever, but the single child can't blame it on anyone. I mean, it's it. I mean, that's how
It was the dog.
It was the dog that did it. Well, you know, I think you bring up a very important point, but at the same time, I'll also say that family is everything. At the end of the day, you don't get to pick your family, but I do believe there's a phrase that says, blood is thicker than water. There's a lot you do for your family. You tolerate, you help, you can support one another, and so I'm very much a person who promotes family, because at the end of the day, they're going to be there the whole time. The friends you have at school, the friends that you have later, they come and go. Family doesn't.
Absolutely. And you're more genuine with your family. There's
True.
no filter. You just tell them.
Because they know better.
Yeah, and they know that you love them. That's why you tell them that. But if it's a good or bad comment, you know, we're all familiar with the famous, you know, Christmas time, you know, like all the family get together and all sort of stuff comes out of a result of that. But I think that's just so pure, so genuine.
Yes.
That's like no filter. And I love it, right? Because there's no hard feeling. They don't think you're telling them something to hurt them if it's a, you know, constructive feedback, right?
Yes, yes.
But the best part is, you know, they never change. You know,
No,
so
they
you
don't.
accept them for who they are from the bottom of your heart, you know.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you get together with your family, even though it's only maybe 3 times a year. It's great that you see your siblings, and I do know that they're, you know, everywhere, Canada, Seattle, and so forth. So that is quite a bit of a distance, I guess you could say.
It is.
Give me a favorite holiday movie. Pick the holiday, and then tell me what the favorite movie is.
This is not necessarily a holiday, okay? This is an occasion, Halloween.
Okay.
Right? But I am religious to watch all the Saw series every Halloween. I don't know
The
why.
Saw series.
Yeah. I don't know. It just goes well with those couple
Oh yes, it
days.
does.
You know, I'm not really into gore movies at all, right? But I just have something for this, especially the first couple ones were better ones, I think, compared to the rest of them. So I really enjoyed watching it during the Halloween. Goes well with the theme, right?
Yep.
But since I had a kid, my favorite Halloween is basically Christmas. Because, you know, to me it's exciting to see a kid being excited for Santa, and my kid is in the stage that she doesn't know the real truth about Santa, so we're not going to discuss it at all.
Okay, all right.
Right? So like we went on this Christmas train this year, which I'm sure you know about it. Like she was so excited. Right? This is not a movie, but again, you know, like just my favorite holiday is Christmas at the moment, right? And then like having the kid being so excited about it, it just melts my heart, you know, so I love it.
You know, having children, you get to experience the holidays differently, seeing it through their eyes. And it's actually not so much that I'm experiencing the holiday, it's I'm witnessing them experience the holiday. So there's a lot to be said
and
for
you
the
know,
younger ones.
that moment never comes back. Now that I'm getting older, so I'm really enjoying. One thing I learned as I got older is enjoy the moment.
Enjoy it, be
like
present.
don't think about tomorrow right now. Just right now. You're here right now. Enjoy it, you know.
Time passes so quickly. Enjoy the moment. Be present. Very good advice. Yes. This is something that I'm sure you can add some good information here. Give me an idea of someone that was influential in your life and why they were influential. How did they impact you?
So there is a gentleman, I will say his name. I hope he's watching this.
Please.
His name is Greg Cause.
Greg Cause, okay.
And that's C-A-W-S, you know, his last name. He was basically my boss at some point. So when I was back in days when I was living in Canada, he was my boss, right? So basically the relationship was just a normal like employee-manager relationship, right?
Okay.
But he was a great boss. So I'm not going to highlight on why he was a great boss, but no, he was a great boss, right? And then our relationships grew stronger since I left Canada, right, and moved to U.S. And he basically became initially my business mentor and then eventually almost like a life mentor. I learned so many things from this guy over the years, right, that I'm very always appreciative for it, right? Like, and he told me stuff. I was younger, you know, I like didn't pay attention as much, right? But now I'm getting why he said that. Like he's very seasoned, he's very experienced, right? This is probably a business point, right? But at some point, I always wanted to run some sort of business, right? So when I was talking, I called him one day. I was like, Greg, I want to do this business, you know, whatever the business was back then, right? And he's like, it's a great idea, but I have a homework for you. And I was like, what is it? And then he's like, I want you to take 10 people that are not family or friends, just find 10 people and go tell them about your idea. Simple as that, right? To get some feedback. I was like, why? I think it's a great idea. I think I should totally do it, right? He's like, no. I want you to do it. Do this, and then we can talk about how I'm going to help you how to run your business.
Okay.
I was like, okay, and I didn't realize it back then. I didn't really follow that, right? At that point of time, I was like, whatever, I'm going to do that. I tried a business, and it didn't work out. I'm glad it didn't work out. But my point is, like, the next time that I thought about doing another business, right, I followed the advice, and I told it, like, it was a light bulb moment for me. Why, right? This whole, like, get out of your box and get feedback from the outside world. Like, does anybody really buy your idea? Is it valuable? Does it really solve a problem, or you think it's going to solve a problem,
Yes.
right? So this was one of the great things I learned from him, right? Just, like, basically get outside and, like, get feedback about whatever you're doing, right? It's not always in your head. It's also the outside world that really matters, right? But the other thing is he's a very family man. He really cared about his family, he cared about his kids, he cared about outdoor, like the life in balance, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't just crazy about working, but also crazy about the family, and like everything. And the whole balancing is also the other thing I learned from him, and I'm always appreciative, to him.
That is amazing. I'm glad you brought him up. The advice to go speak with 10 people, I think that's powerful. Just the idea that out of your head, you can now express what it is you're trying to do, the product or service. In your mind, it makes sense. I mean, you convinced yourself. You've gone over again and again in the middle of the night, and I'm sure you've gotten yourself so excited. Well, can you really get that in a way that can communicate to a person that you're just speaking to for the first time? Will they get it? Will they see the value, the worth? Are you solving a problem? Good exercise.
It was great. And then he went one step further, I think. And he was like, if they say it's a great idea, ask them for $50. It's like, give me $50 to work on this idea, whatever it is, right? If they give it to you, that means they're really passionate. That you're onto something, probably. Like, work on it. It's not bad, right?
I like that.
Versus closing the door and work on it for a few years, and then you're like, okay, we're ready. Let's go to the market. Like, oops, nobody wants this.
Nobody wants it. No, I think that's something that not only have I seen accounting professionals deal with, because I've worked with them in starting their businesses, but I've worked with a lot of business owners. And likewise, we've come to market with product, and in time we learned that the course, the class, the program that we're offering doesn't resonate like we initially thought it would. So I think every business owner experiences it, whether it be with the business as a whole or a product launch that you're doing. Excellent advice, though. So also,
one of the very good books I've read is The 4-Hour Work Week. I know.
Oh, yes.
It becomes a cliche book to talk about, but honestly, like, the author totally opened my eyes, right? I read it, I think, about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
I read it about that same time too.
Yeah, great book.
What did you take from it? Why was it such a great book for you?
Because I resonated a lot of way with him, right? Like, it's funny, like, when he started talking about his career history, when he was working in sales and all that, right?
Yeah.
He was never, like, passionate about it, like, 100%, but he found a way to hack into it and got really good at it. Or that salsa Argentinian dance story, right? Or the wrestling story that he said, right? That's the thing. So he wasn't really good at it at the beginning, right? But he found a way to be good at it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, I loved it, right? It was like, whatever it is, if you focus on it, right, you can get there. You might not, like, get to 100%, but hey, getting to 80% is something. It's better than zero.
Better than most.
Better than most, right? And I just love how he hacks the system, if you want to call it that way, And by system, I mean life, right?
Yes, that's right.
And I really enjoy Tim Ferriss' book. I think, and he has a blog, by the way.
I didn't know that.
Every Friday, I think he has his Friday thing. He sends out his blog, post or something. And I think it's a very interesting guy to the way that I think an average person like me, I think, would connect with him. Like, I don't see him as some sort of thought leader, whatever, like, fancy guy. No, he's somebody like me who figured it out, right? So. And also, he travels a lot, and that's how he does his life. So, and I'm big on travel, so
you can identify with it.
I absolutely can. I've been to 35 countries by now, so I kind of like to continue, the lifestyle if I can.
Fascinating. I love it. All right, give me a failure that you've experienced and what you learned from it.
So failure is startup. So at one point in my life. So I think I told you at the beginning. So I've been in the IT and technology and cybersecurity field for about 22 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, At one point in my life, for a couple of reasons, one being redundancy, one being like having a backup option or something, I wanted to like do something that was not IT and technology.
Okay.
Right? I wanted to do something completely different. To maybe I was burnt out with what I was doing at that moment of time, maybe it was too much stressful, maybe I just needed a backup. Like, what if I could not work in technology? What if I could not work in IT, right? I want to have a backup, right? So I decided to work on a food startup, right?
Oh, wow, okay.
And because I thought that was completely different, right? And
That is different.
And I was a foodie, right? I consider myself a foodie. Everybody these days does. I'm one of those guys, right? Take pictures of the food and post on Instagram, right?
Oh, yeah, it's not me. I eat 2 meals a day. That's as much as a foodie as I am, I guess.
But anyway, so I thought about doing a business, doing a startup, if you name it, right? And but I didn't quit my job, right? So if one thing I learned from Greg, it's like, don't quit your job. Try to grow it. If it works, then focus on it, right?
Yes.
So I worked on it for about a year and a half, and honestly, I had some very good success doing that, right? And then it got to a point that I was like, you know what? I want to do a restaurant. I want to open a restaurant,
Okay.
right? And what we did is we threw what they call the pop-up restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So basically you go, you rent a restaurant for a night, and you invite a bunch of people to come and give you feedback, or you sell to actual clients of that night, right? And again, remember, I've never worked in a restaurant in my life.
Wow.
Right? So we did it that night, right? This is, oh gosh, many years ago, right? And that was here in Utah, by the way.
Interesting, okay.
So we did it one night. My wife and I, we did it. She was a great help, and we got a couple other helps to do it, right? We invited people. We got some great feedback on it, right? And it was all the food. Nothing went wrong. It was everybody left happy. But at the end of that night, I realized I wasn't made for this. I realized I don't enjoy this. I'm probably much better as a client on the other end, sitting at a table, giving feedback on the food, rather than trying to make, because I realize it's a lot of work. It's really difficult. Like, honestly, my respect for anybody who works in the food industry became tenfold after that point.
Yes.
This is probably one of the most difficult jobs in the world, and people don't realize it. They just sit there and enjoy the meal, and you're like, oh, that's it. No, it's not easy. There's so much work goes behind the scene.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, is you've got so much going on where somebody is able to sit down and enjoy the meal. There's a lot going on to make that possible.
Right. So it was a reality check for me. Like, it's the moment that you get to know yourself and you admit that you're not made for this.
But it's impressive that you actually went to the extent of not just having the idea, but testing it like you described, where you got the restaurant, did the experiment, saw what happened, got the feedback, and realized, I don't want to do this full time.
It's funny, like, I still talk to some people who came that night, right? And they're like, oh, you should open your restaurant. I was like, trust me, I'm going to be really bad at this. I'm going to be probably a very miserable person, because, and that's the other thing I learned from that experience, is do what you're really good at. And I realized for me, it's technology. Right? And I enjoy it every day. No matter how crazy it gets, I enjoy it, know? So it was so sad to shut everything down, We got covered by a local newspaper at that point,
Oh, wow.
I mean, we did a bunch of other stuff, which I'll tell you later, but like we were on the way to make something happen, right? But that night, I talked to my wife and I was like, I don't think we can do this. And she agreed, because she knows, even without me talking, she knows me,
Yes.
And we just had to basically shut everything down and, call it good.
That's fine. So you brought up your wife, and I was going to ask, obviously being an entrepreneur, starting a business, starting multiple businesses, what's it been like to have her support as you've gone through those things?
I'm very, very thankful for having her in my life, because without her support, I couldn't be here. Honestly, there were so many tough moments, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, right? It's a very lonely word. People don't realize it. People think, oh, it's a very happy word, you're always busy. Yes, you are busy, but it's very lonely. There's so many moments you're like, I'm lonely, I got nobody. Even though you have a lot of network of people around you,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So my wife always supported me, pushed me forward, gave me ideas. Seriously, like, she solved some problems for me that I couldn't solve on my own,
Wow.
right? Like, just by giving me an outsider feedback, right? Mm-hmm. But also, she really supported me. She stood by me in the tough moments, and also in the happy moments, right? But one other thing I want to say about your partner and your wife and all that, right? Or your husband, who is watching, right? Is I think you have a certain amount of credit with your significant other. You know what I mean? It's almost like having money in a bank account, like having a line of credit. However you want to look at
Yes.
it, right? Spend it wisely. I mean, your partner is probably the best person to give you feedback, right? But don't drag them into your misery when you're going through like
Yes.
a tough time. Like they're fantastic support system. They give you the best feedback, right? But the dynamic change a lot of times when you bring them all the way in, you expect them to just be like you, work like you, think like you, right? I think that's a recipe for failure. Because remember this, your business might succeed, might fail. At the end of the day, it's a business. It's not a real human being, right? It's a business, right? But what remains after is your relationship with your partner, that is gonna last for so many years, right? So I think when it comes to I would always count on my partner as a support system. I'm very appreciative, very thankful, but I've learned not to drown her with my own problems sometimes, and use my basically credit wisely. It's like, again, like a line of credit, you spend the money, you put the money back, you have the line of credit. You spend the money, you put it back, you have it remains there for you as your backup to go to get help, whatever you need. But the key is put it back.
The key is put it back. As I'm hearing you share that, there's a few things that come to mind. One is, I do know some people that actually work with their spouses, so they are in business together. But what you described is, I think, so important, which is when you have someone that's supporting you, don't drag them into the business. Keep it so that they can have that outside perspective. Don't burden them with your stresses and such. Let them have that unique perspective so that when you need to tap into it, you can get their input and they have a different perspective than being in your day-to-day operations. And so I liked what you were sharing.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's if you're running a business with your significant other, that's a different story, obviously,
Yes.
right? Because you're in together, you're thinking the same way, or you have the same goals, or to make this happen, right? That is obviously I could always appreciate. That's hard. I could always appreciate. But I'm talking about a normal scenario where your significant
Exactly.
other is not in the same business with you, right?
Yeah, this is your idea.
Yeah,
You're
this
in
is
business.
your idea.
You run with it, and on occasion they can give you some perspective and insights, but it is your idea, so run with it.
And honestly, don't on the other side, don't miss on spending time with your family when you're going through the madness. Don't. It's super important. That's something you put the balance back in your life. That moment that you spend time going on a dinner date with your partner, or spending time with your kid playing some kids game with him or her, right? Or whatever it is that you want to do as a family, right? Those moments are super critical to your success as a person and your business, right? Because that's balance. That's a reminder to you, or at least to me, is why am I doing this, right? What's the ultimate goal? Really, it's a family.
That's right.
I'm doing this for my family, right? And I think it's fair to enjoy them while I'm doing this. Right? You know what? You guys wait until I get to point that I want to get, and then I'm gonna come hang out with you. I don't think that's fair.
That is so well said, and I'm glad you brought it up. One of the things that I think a lot of the people I work with, the entrepreneurs and so forth, is they're workaholics. And so starting a business, especially the first 1 to 3 years, can be so overwhelming that oftentimes things suffer. Things are put aside, hobbies, interests, relationships. And what we need to be aware of is we don't want to sabotage or ruin the support system we have that's making this possible. Don't destroy that to have this work. This is something that we want to succeed, but not at the expense of our relationships and family and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I love what you shared there. How about your daughter? What do you hope that she takes from watching you run businesses, be an entrepreneur as her father? What do you think she's taking from this?
I hope she doesn't take the long working hours from me, But I think she's learning to try. You know what I mean? She's learning to obviously she's a little bit too young for this, but
Right.
as she's growing up, I hope the one thing if I want her to see is whatever it is you want to do, go after it, make it happen, or fail at it, whichever, right? But you will have no regrets.
Yes.
You don't have to question in your head, try it. And that's how I want her to be raised. I want her to whatever you have, try it. Don't worry about it. I support you. Go try it. Right? Once you realize, obviously safely, because with kids it can get dangerous sometimes, right? Try it safely, right? And so you don't always have to wonder about it. You don't always have what if. The what if is the worst thing in life, right?
One of the things I hope my children also have, and coincidentally, two of my 3 have their own businesses.
Oh, wow.
And so to watch them have that confidence that interest and to take that risk, that's hugely gratifying as a father, as a parent, to realize, wow, look what. I do believe in nature and nurture. I think this is partly who they are as persons, but there's something about the security that they were raised in that I hope they had that allowed them to have this goal, this dream, and to pursue it. So
Exactly.
I agree with what you're sharing.
Like, as this is a joke, but as Persians, right, we think you're either supposed to become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. Like, worst case, you become an astronaut or pilot. That's a different story, though, right? But like, that's how I was raised. Seriously, like when you go to school, grade 1, you ask people, who do you want to become or what do you want to do in future? The
Engineer,
answer is
doctor, lawyer, yeah.
maybe a lawyer, maybe. That's like if you don't succeed at being an engineer or doctor, right? Obviously, it's a joke, but then there's some truths into it, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's something I want to be a complete opposite for my daughter, right? I don't care what you want to do as long as you enjoy doing it and helps you in life, like I want to support her no matter what, right? So this is really where I'm going at, right? And the other thing is, like, when you see a toddler walking, the little kid just start learning to walk, if they fall, what do they say? Don't go get her or get him. Let him or her get up on their own and do it,
That's
right?
right.
That's the biggest lesson you can teach to someone who's just learning to walk, right?
Yep.
Why? Because they realize to get up on their own and life continues. Right? If they sit there and cry, right? Obviously, they're going to cry for a bit, but then they're going to get up. Same thing in when it comes to running a business and entrepreneurship, right? There are going to be so many failures, right? So many businesses fail, obviously, right? Or so many steps that might fail as a course of running a business. It happens.
Yes.
It totally is okay. The idea is get up and go. And I'm hoping that she sees it in me, because I know she sees me when I have happy days and something worked out. And there are obviously not so happy days when something didn't work out, right? But hey, the thing is, like, I might be a little bit not so happy at night, but when I wake up in the morning, it's a new day. Let's just move on and just do something fun,
Well, I've seen me be in very stressful situations, and I think I handled it well, and I'd like to think that my children could see how to cope and deal with stressful situations, that this too shall pass. Things will get over. There is a light that's going to come from this, and a lesson. You're going to be better because of it. And I think that perspective helps them as they're starting to experience their
Absolutely.
challenges as adults and so forth. Adulting isn't easy, but you have to at some time or another grow up, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so here's the next thing. This is going to be a good question for you.
All right.
You mentioned earlier that you'd lived in 35 countries.
I've visited 35 countries. I wish I lived in 35.
All right, well, that's where I'm going to go. Of those, if you had any place you could live, where would it be? And here could be one of them, by the way.
I love Utah. Utah is awesome. I would admit openly, I'm putting my guard down, I'm not really a snow person. So I've done skiing only a couple times in my life. I know everybody here loves to ski.
It is genuinely the greatest snow on earth for a
I
variety of reasons.
know. Says on every license plate. Too. I get
That's
it.
right.
I get it.
But I agree with you. I haven't skied in a while, so
to me,
but I love it.
It has to be a warm destination.
Ah.
Okay. So out of countries I've been so far, Colombia was obviously fantastic. I definitely love to go back and visit, and do more things over there. But also Portugal definitely comes on top of my list for a place to live.
Why Portugal?
I think it was like everything in moderation. It was a good combination of the weather, great culture, very nice people, right? Just a little bit more laid back. Because here in the U.S., right, I think we're always a go, go, go culture. Like, now, go, do it now. It's like there's always a rush to make things happen. You know what I mean?
I totally do. I actually enjoy the rush, but yes,
yeah,
you're right.
I mean, no, that's the thing. We learn to enjoy it. It becomes a part of us on a daily basis, right? And there's nothing wrong with it, just a different culture, right? Mm-hmm. You know what? It's the opposite attracts, right?
Oh,
and
yes.
I found out over there, mostly in Europe, but like Portugal, specifically, right? It's just a little bit more laid back. And maybe that's my Canadian background, I guess, right? I guess I get it from there, right? But it's just a little bit more laid back, There's not really a huge rush to make things happen, and just like life is just a little bit on a slower pace, you know. And again, just because it's the opposite, I learned to enjoy it too, But probably at the moment, Colombia and Portugal are on top of my list.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. That perspective is quite interesting. Here's the big question. If you could have, say, coffee or a meal with someone, alive or dead, who is it and why?
Um, I know this is gonna sound very um, ideological, but I could just meet with my younger self.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I could just meet with him and tell him a few things that I know, right? But honestly, the most important thing I would tell myself is enjoy the life, enjoy the moment. That's something I learned later in life. I wish I knew it earlier.
Yes.
You know, like don't just go for the future. Don't just try to build this thing in the future, right? Now, right now, this is what matters. You know, people around you, you know, family, friends, like you spend more time with them, you know, because professionally, whatever you're supposed to, you're going to get it done. Eventually, you're going to get it done. It might be a couple years later than you thought, but eventually you're going to get there. That's not really a huge concern to me, at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
But family, those moments, it doesn't come back, right? And I'm not like, and the reason I answer your question this way is like, I'm not really a huge fan of meeting like the idols. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yes.
Like, I'm not into that, right?
I get that.
I like meeting ordinary people, right? Like someone like myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the one people I see on a daily basis. And I will tell you this again, this is a different perspective of my life, right? My entire life I always swam against the water. If like there was a group of people, there was like 99 people, there's like 100 people, I was a part of them, right? And like 99 of them goes to like do it. I have two options, A or B. Go do option A. I will always go do option B. I don't know why, right? And like, I know that sounds controversial, but here's the thing: I survived. I'm still alive. You
That's
know,
right.
it worked. I don't know. I'm here. I'm alive. That isn't the biggest accomplishment. I didn't die.
Yes.
Right. And that's how I was like with everything in life. Anytime that I had a choice, I always went to the choice that was less popular if I had two choices, right? Because I always believed that would open new doors to me,
Interesting.
right? So that's why I'm not like, I know these days, you know, we have tons of great people, you know, tons of people who like, you know, definitely change our society, you know, and they've done so many great things, right? It's not, I mean, I always love to read about them and understand them, right? But I don't really have an idol. I don't really have anybody who I'm like, I want to meet with. So I'm not going to say any names, you know?
No, that's fine.
But like, you know, because I give you an example, right? Elon Musk is a perfect example. Everybody these days is quoting Elon Musk. Like you go over, I was like, he's a great guy. I'm sure he's a great guy, right? I'm not dying to meet. I don't feel I miss anything if I don't meet with him. You know, he's someone definitely very successful, right? But there's also a lot of other successful people in life. So really, I'm not into the idols. I never was because, you know, I was never an idol myself either. You know, I was never the most popular kid in school either, right? But again, call it the black sheep of the family who's swimming against the water, whatever you want to name it, you know, and it worked out for me.
You know, I actually understand where you're coming from on this, very much so, because I learned years and years ago that even very successful people, influencers, they might be called today, they still put their pants on one leg at a time. They're still everyday people. And when I realized that there wasn't this barrier that existed between the two of us, that we're both human beings, we're both individuals, we both have interests, all of a sudden I found that people are a lot more approachable. And just the average person, as you're describing, is very interesting. I love these conversations that I have the opportunity to have because I learn so much about people, just genuine, everyday people. And they're just wonderful. My wife's uncle was the president of Toshiba. There were 4 presidents, and he was the American president. And to meet him and visit with him and be in their home and experience that, when I first had the opportunity to meet the family, I was very intimidated. I mean, there's a very wealthy, very successful individual, very prominent, everything that you could perhaps imagine or think he had. And I walked in and had just very common, natural conversations, saw the family dynamic where he was just an equal, and all of a sudden I just realized, you know, I just need not to be so concerned with other people. And because of that, I've had amazing conversations with people that are down to earth and real, but obviously for other people, they're
Telling you about being stuck on a plane ride, right? Just like you're on a plane, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours or longer, right? You don't know who's going to sit right next to
don't.
you. Open the conversation. You're going to learn so many interesting things about that person. Obviously, if they're in the mood to talk, right?
Yep.
That you won't even guess. You don't even know who this person was that sat right next to you, right? But as you talk, by the time you're getting off the plane, you probably made a new friend, right?
That's right.
And I think that's really what I'm for. Like, I'm all for conversation with anybody that I don't know. It doesn't have to be a famous or a celebrity or someone, you know.
So there's a show, I think it's a PBS show, a KBYU show perhaps. I've not seen many episodes, but the context or the idea behind it is amazing. Essentially what it is they go through like a phone book, find a person, and they go interview them and kind of do a life story on them. And every single time you go to meet somebody that's just this average person out of the phone book, and they have an amazing life story, a history. They have this family situation. They've got this health situation. They've got this career situation that they're able to share, and it's just fascinating. If you, in the show, have a great person that can kind of draw out the right questions and answers, you can get a very interesting perspective of someone that's just an average person. We all live amazing lives, so I think you're right to kind of see that in everyone, that potential.
Yeah, everybody has a good story.
Yep, that's very true. All right, so here's where we're going to go. Off the wall. If you had a vacation that you could recommend to me, where should I go?
If you like beach, definitely try Cancun.
Cancun, all right.
It's a very
I'm going there in a few weeks, so I'll be there.
perfect. I hope and make sure that you're spoiled. Like, take care of yourself. Like, whatever it is that you want to do. Like, if you want to go to the beach, you want to enjoy the food. Like, don't hesitate. Whatever comes to your mind, do it.
Just before this discussion, I just got a text that we're renting a catamaran and we're going to Isla Mujeres.
Isla
And
Mujeres,
so-
perfect.
Yeah, so I just found out that
I
that's
just
now in the
stayed there
itinerary.
last year in Isla Mujeres. It's a really nice place.
Oh, it's beautiful. And what we enjoy about that is we go and we get the golf carts and go riding around the island, go out to the lighthouse, and then I'll go to the beach. I'll get a massage. I always get a thing of nachos and a nice margarita. It's beautiful.
Whatever makes you happy over there, just do it, right? And I have a funny story to say. So this personal. This is about my my wedding, right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
We were gonna get married here, right? And we invited a bunch of families, and like almost toward last minute, some stuff and some family members couldn't make it here. I'm not gonna get into the details of it, but visa is not always easy for somebody coming from across the world to U.S., right? We don't appreciate it when we're here because we're just here sometimes.
Yes.
And some family members couldn't make it, right? So the very last minute, my wife and I decided to change the wedding location. We actually got married in Cancun.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we did destination wedding, right? Instead of like the traditional, in home or Utah wedding, whatever you call it, right? So we did destination wedding. My wife wasn't initially quite up for it because obviously, she wanted more people here. More people could come here. So there were less people, I think, made it. I think there was right about 40 people who made it there, right? But that became one of the best trips that they had. Like, to this day, years later, they still brag about it and they talk to us. Oh, that was the best, right? So Cancun has a special place in my heart, not just because I've been there a few times, but also like we got married there.
Married there, yes.
So it's like a happy place for me. Always a happy place.
Beautiful. I didn't know that. Well, that's actually a really good thing. I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned a book. We earlier asked, or you volunteered the idea of the 4-hour work week.
4-hour work week.
All right. So movies. Give me the top 3 movies. What are your favorite movies?
That's a tough one. I don't know. There's like so many good movies I enjoyed. I can't really.
I'll give you a few of mine. See if you see them.
All right.
My most favorite is one called Man from Snowy River.
Okay.
I absolutely love that movie. Part of it is nostalgia with my father.
Okay.
The soundtrack from that, we actually did a collage video when he passed away of his life with the soundtrack of Man from Snowy River.
Wow.
But that was a powerful movie for me, and I absolutely love it. It's got all the elements that I think make a good story. There's horseback riding, there's a romance, beautiful music, excellent story. It's actually based on a true story in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So Man from Snowy River. Very much love the movie Avatar.
Avatar, okay.
Quite impressed with that. I think the story is incredible, quite like that. From a I enjoy war movies, lots of more war movies,
Okay.
but particularly like Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
Very much like that movie for a lot of reasons. And then from a kind of a cartoon or whatever, very much love The Incredibles.
Wow.
But The Incredibles are a family. It's a family
yeah,
film,
that's
which is
that's
what I
a
love.
family favorite for sure. Notebook is one of the movies I really like.
Notebook is excellent. I love
I really like it's a tearjerker for
it.
sure.
It
you
is, but it's a
know?
good movie. It's a good story.
It's a good movie. It's a really good story, and I don't really watch a ton of war movies, but one of the movies I really like, I think it's called Glorious Bastard.
Oh yes.
It was just so touching. It
Uh-huh.
was you know a little bit funny, but the story behind it was like so shaking. Like it
Yeah.
was I couldn't believe it when I watched it. It was amazing.
Wow.
It definitely touched me.
Yeah.
You know, how far they go to save their own. You know, it was amazing.
Yeah, from a touching point of view, Saving Private Ryan, but Schindler's List, very touching on that. So yeah, you're bringing some good memories of what movies I like. All right, so let's ask this: podcast. Do you listen to podcasts?
So I do listen to some podcasts, but some of those actually in Farsi because I like to stay in touch with the Farsi-speaking
Oh, yeah.
businesses and entrepreneurs and all that, you know.
Yes.
And there's some good ones, you know, that I listen to. I nowadays, honestly, like especially this season, it's been about a couple months. I haven't been able to like listen to any newer podcasts, to be honest, because it's so busy.
Yeah.
But you know, definitely, I do like listening to the more entrepreneurial podcasts. You
Okay.
know, all the challenges of my own fellows. You know, when they hit a problem and all that. You know, and I like to hear how they overcame the problem and how they went through it. You know, so it's really learning for me to listen to somebody else who's gone through that.
Very interesting. Shameless plug. Obviously, building the premier accounting firm. Subscribe to it. Let's do this. What's one question I should have asked that I've not asked yet? What did you expect me to ask that I've not asked?
What is my selling angle? What is one thing that helps me become successful at selling our services?
Okay, good. Tell me about it.
I think it's a personal connection with the accountants.
Okay.
I think accountants, just because they're accountants, they are being approached by a ton of salespeople because you know you're the hub. You have access to these clients. You have their trust. Everybody wants to sell services through you to your clients, right? So
Okay.
the accountants are used to being approached by a lot of people for different reasons. Obviously, there's business reasons, business motives, behind some of those, right?
Uh-huh.
I go from the other way. I actually like to make friends with accountants, and I like to be friends with them. Some of my really great friends, we started as having a business relationship, client versus
Yes.
advisor relationship, and then we became friends, and we actually hang out. Like we go out, to get a drink sometimes, or we go out to have a dinner, like we still like friends with each other, and I love that because the conversation isn't business at all. Like when we go out and have a dinner, it's literally personal, it's family, it's life, it's travel,
Excellent.
it's all that. So that's one thing, I if you ask, I would have told you, that to me it's about really making genuine friends, right? Because who doesn't want a new friend to enjoy having conversations with? And then the other thing I will tell you about that, like the distinguishing factor or what helps me to be more successful, when I approach, the accountants is, accountants they have a vast of education experience, however you look at it,
Okay.
right? You gotta be able to speak at their level. You gotta put yourself at their seat, right? And when you can do that, you're gonna be able to connect with them. You gotta see the world from their aspect. And this is a very common mistake we make in the sales world, right? We're like trying to sell our product, sell services, right? It's very cliche to say, what is it for the customer? What customer is gonna get? Obviously, that's important, right? But it doesn't really happen until you put yourself in their seat and see the world from their point of view.
Yep.
And then you're gonna be able to make the real connection with them rather than just a sales pitch.
One of the things that I think is very appropriate for this then is realizing that it's asking genuine questions, just trying to find out about that potential client, or once they are a client, just still having that curiosity about them and who they are. And if you do that, they'll feel that you're genuinely interested in them and their company, and they'll volunteer more information. They'll feel more relaxed and safe sharing that information. It's just genuinely asking the right questions that people become a little bit more comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Because
like that.
humans are humans. At the end of the day, they're two human beings. Forget about business, forget about all that. If you can't connect on a personal level, you can't connect on a bigger level either.
Yeah, why are they going to give you the money, right?
Right. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not connected, why?
Yeah, okay, good. All right, so here's the next thing. We're going to go into a topic that you get to pick now. All right, so I'm going to throw out 4 subject matters,
Okay.
and you pick one that you'd like to talk about.
All right.
First one's faith, next is music, third is family, and the fourth is workaholic versus balanced life. Pick one of those.
So I love listening to music, but
Let's
I'm
talk
not
about music.
great at me. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm
You're not
good
going to
at
go
it.
there. Okay, no music. All right.
So that's all. I'm just going to cross it off.
All right.
Either the third or fourth one, family or the workaholic versus balanced life. You pick any of those.
No,
two.
no, you're picking. Family, work life, or workaholic or balanced life.
I'm going to pick something that touches both. How about that?
Okay.
I want to talk about that. So
Okay,
is it
let's
like
go- let's
whatever
go-
I want to talk about? Or
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you have questions?
No, I've got some questions. So first
Okay.
of all, we'll hit both areas. So
All right.
let's talk about family.
Because I think they go kind of together.
They do. Well, they're impacted by one another.
Yeah.
So, all right. So with family, your mom and dad, what is it that you feel you've learned from your parents, and what do you hope that they see in you?
So when I first went to college or went to university, I was actually studying mechanical engineering, and I went to it because of the engineer factor. I kind of told you about
Yes.
it. Like we have to become an engineer. That's
Yes.
our fate. Engineer factor of it, right? And after, even though I was like really good at like the math and physics and all that, like it was something I realized almost after 3 years that I don't like it.
Okay.
So I wanted to get out. I really wanted to get out, right? And again, this is back in Iran. So just give you more background. So I did my bachelor's, back in Iran. I have a bachelor's in software engineering, which I tell you how I got there. I have a master's in computer science from University of Victoria in Canada, and I have another master's in information system security from U of U here, or the U, we should just say U here, right?
Yep.
So I went to the university in 3 different countries. But this first one, right, when I was back in Iran, and I was doing mechanical engineering at the beginning, right, I hated it. I loved computers. Like I was working with computers since I was like in grade 5, I loved it, right? But for some reason, I ended up in mechanical engineering school and I hated it, right? And my life was very miserable. Like I was depressed. I hated myself. I hated the school when it was a really top school in the country, right?
Yeah.
I hated it. And then, and I hid it from my parents. I didn't tell them, right? But, after a while, they started picking up clues, and I think my mom one day went to the school that I was going to and figured things out, right? They figured that I was failing courses, I didn't have any passion for it and all that, right? One of the most difficult things in Iran is once you're inside in the school to switch your major.
Wow.
That's one of the most difficult. You almost better start over.
Okay.
And then there is vast amount of paperwork and meetings and all that involved, right? But here's the thing, my mom had my back. My mom went through all of that with me, helped me switch my major to, software engineering.
Yes.
Right? Like it was like almost a year worth of work. I wouldn't forget that. My mom totally went through that with me. So from the eyes of my friend and like the university and all that, was probably a failure, right? Because of failing my courses, I wasn't successful. I was depressed. I didn't want to like go to school. I was leaving the home to go to school, but I was like going sit in the park and just hang out there. Seriously, I just sit there for like hours and just
Wow.
like listen to music. Remember back in old days the Walkmans?
The Walkmans, yep.
That was me.
Are we talking cassette or are we talking
Cassette.
disc? Okay,
oh,
we're going
cassette.
cassette.
Absolutely
All right,
cassettes, right? The CDs were after.
That's right.
But I was super depressed and I was not a happy person, right? And now my mom, not only she picked up the clues and she figured it out, right? She supported me. She dropped everything to make sure that I get where I get, And honestly, my life 180 degrees changed after
Wow.
that. I was a much happier person. My grades were great. Like I did a 4-year course or 4-year, bachelor's in 3 years, and it was hard because you have a time limit when you switch your major, long story. But like, I was happy to push myself through it. I was happy to do it. But my family, my mom, 110% supported me. I would be in a completely different place if that never happened. It would completely change my life. Like I know that I will be somewhere else,
Yep.
right? But she taught me support for the kid, no matter how bad it gets. Because she could be like, you know what, you're a grown up, man. It's all on you. Go figure it out, right? No, she had my back. Even though at that age, I was like, I don't know, 18, 19.
So here's my question. Does she know that?
Oh, she absolutely knows that.
You've told her?
Yeah. So I told everybody that I know, like, hey, she had my back. Like I always use that as actually a talking point for a couple reasons, right? One is, it's kind of cliche, but follow your passion. Just go after whatever you're good at, right?
Yeah.
But family support is everything. If she didn't have my back, I wouldn't be here today.
Okay.
So I'm always appreciative to her.
All right, so that's the family. Let's do the work-life or workaholic versus life balance. There's a lot of discussion about life balance. Is it possible? Is it something we should be working towards? Is it bad or good to be a workaholic? What are your thoughts?
When you're an entrepreneur, it's not 8 to 5. We all know that. It's 24/7 now, right? So you ended up working more than usual. You ended up making a ton of sacrifice, right? I don't think it's a bad thing to be a workaholic, but you have to put a balance in life. The balance doesn't have to be on a daily basis, okay? But it has to be overall balance, right? I tried, to spend more time with my family every day. I really tried, but I'm not always good at it, right? There's stuff happens, work, especially, tax season gets crazy. You got to go help somebody, right?
Yep.
You have to jump on a computer right at the dinner table. Sorry, guys, I'm going to be in my office, work and help somebody else, right? But I learned that I need to give myself a prize. So if you work really hard, right, you have to make those stops, right? If you're a workaholic, you have to reward yourself. You have to do something fun. You have to do something that you enjoy. My preference is family. I want to do something with my family.
Yes.
Right? And it's funny, it used to be my wife that reminded me, hey, you need to stop, right? You need to take a break. Doesn't matter. I know things are really bad right now. I know you're under a ton of stress, right? Doesn't matter. Cut it off. We have to go out. Let's go for dinner. Let's go for a ride. Let's go for a trip. Whatever it is, right? Now I'm almost becoming I'm that person. I'd go to her. I was like, drop it. Let's go. Doesn't matter. Let's take the kid. Let's go.
I love it.
Right? And honestly, I found out that rewarding yourself, it actually stimulates your brain to do better next time. We're just like kids, right? You do great, you get a sticker, right?
Yeah.
So you got to give yourself that sticker once in a while, right? Don't just go crazy until you get to a result. You have to cut. You have to make breaks, right? So again, I have nothing bad against being a workaholic as long as you make those breaks and you reward yourself, then it's okay to me, But at the end of the day, make sure as a whole you keep the balance. It's not necessarily balanced on a daily basis, but as a whole, when you look at it from, 20,000 feet view, you make sure the balance is there.
Yeah, the things that I'm hearing as you're talking about it is from a balance point of view. You're right. It's not a day-to-day thing, but you do have your own personal health. You have your relationships, and you don't want them to ever be neglected and suffer. But they don't necessarily need, an hour attention today.
Exactly.
They might need an hour attention this week. And
Yeah.
you just need to be paying attention to what needs it. I used an analogy earlier, and it's kind of like those plates that you spin on a little stick. And sometimes one will go longer than the other, and you just need to figure out where do I need to be putting the attention to keep them spinning. And that analogy makes sense to me. But the other thing that also comes to mind is you're right about workaholics. Being an entrepreneur, I've found that the work is never done. I don't have this satisfaction of necessarily saying something's complete. Every day typically ends with, there's something else I could be working on, but now's the right time to stop. I just need to stop.
That is so
and,
true.
I need sleep, I need food, I need family time. And so my next thing was being present. I just need to recognize that if I'm at home, I need to be at home. If I'm at work, I can be at work. If the phone rings, I don't just answer it. I'm not Pavlov's dog where I don't respond to everything. I'm deliberate. If you walk into my office, I'll let you wait a minute before I talk because I got to finish what I'm working on, and then I'll talk to you. So it's just staying focused and being present. So But I loved how you described that though.
Sometimes, Roger, you can kill multiple birds with one stone. It's something I do, for example, right? So you wanna care about your health, you wanna care about your family. All those are important, right? So once in a while, actually Draper, has really cool trails to walk.
Yes.
Right. So I just go with my wife on a walk.
Yes.
And that's health because you get the little workout and walking out and getting
exercise.
fresh air and
Yep.
sun and all that exercise, right? And you also hang out with your wife and
I love
you work on, whatever it is that you want to talk about, the relationship or travel or kid or whatever. I mean, obviously, I guess since we had kid, a few years ago, then the whole conversation is about kid all the time.
Yep.
But then I enjoy it. But, it's getting the workout and talking to your wife. So if you don't have a lot of time, sometimes we can find little creative solutions to kind of do both.
I like it. Do two things at once. I
Yeah.
like it. Okay, so we're going to do now what's called rapid fire. I'm going to give you an either or. So you get to pick one or the other.
Okay.
All right?
I
First-
don't need to explain why, though.
Nope, we're just
Okay.
going to tell me and we're going to the next one.
Alrighty.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Money or fame?
Money.
Money. Read a book or watch a movie?
Watch a movie.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Extrovert. Disneyland or Disney World?
Definitely Disney World.
Disney World. All right. Drive or fly?
Fly.
Fly. Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Dinner. Perfect. All right. So here's what
I'm
we're going
Persian, by the way. Remember?
Yeah.
Dinner. So we go we start easy on the breakfast. We go all the way.
to. It's just a constant meal.
Yeah.
It's just everything. All right. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to kind of summarize this conversation, and then I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought.
All right.
All right. So think for a moment what you'd like to share. So obviously, this has been an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with Hossein about not only business but life. But some of my takeaways from this conversation is we started the conversation about cybersecurity as well as using technology to work virtually. Thought those were excellent conversations. Some excellent talking points in there worth revisiting. Particularly some of the things that we can do as individuals to be first-line defense in our cyber vulnerability, to checking our emails, not just responding or clicking on everything that we receive. Obviously, it's the two-point authentication. If we can do that, that would be wonderful. And then with regards to working virtually, lots of advantages when you can work remotely with our clients, hiring employees that can be elsewhere rather than near the office. Lots of things that we can do to leverage technology for our benefit. He also offered the opportunity to, in the episode description, go there and get his contact information for you to actually speak with Hossein and find out what it is that he could do perhaps for your business so that he can maybe introduce or answer questions that may apply to your concerns about cybersecurity or also working virtually or remotely. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that and find out more what you can do in your business to be more secure and also more flexible in your abilities to take care of your clients and grow your business. The other thing I enjoyed was just the personal dialogue. Lots of gems in there. We had a great conversation about not only family, but really just keeping things in perspective and not stressing out on maybe some of the challenges that we all face because, like I mentioned, this too shall pass. And so I thought that was a good insight. But enjoyed the conversation. I'm curious, what is a parting thought that you might have?
I think you live life just once. So enjoy it the best and always push your borders. Do something that you're not comfortable with and then watch what happens after.
Perfect.
Like the best things happens when we do stuff that's not our norm, that's not our day-to-day basis. But again, I'm a huge advocate of enjoy the life, enjoy every day, enjoy the moment. Don't wait till tomorrow, enjoy today.
Thank you. That was a great way to end this. I really enjoyed that. So obviously, thank you for listening in and watching for those of you who are viewing this. I do want to encourage you to watch and listen to the other episodes. Definitely subscribe to the podcast, Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is committed to actually helping you build, in fact, the premier accounting firm in your area and get paid what you're worth. If you'd like more information about this and other principles that you can apply in your business, be sure to check them out at universalaccounting.com or give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day.